Today is a pretty darn exciting day. Prim is only 1 day away from her safe date, meaning her baby is almost fully cooked. After a scare a few weeks ago, this really eases my mind quite a bit.
Hey, buddy. Sorry, buddy.
I wanted to wait until closer to her safe date to share the possible colors her foal could be. I've still got a few odds and ends to wrap up before we're 100% ready, but we are definitely moving right along. Since the vet did say at her last appointment that the baby's probably gonna come a little bit earlier than expected, I want to make sure I have Prim in a pretty good routine. We had a crazy windstorm yesterday that did move her shelter a tiny little bit. I have it staked down and I'm just really glad it didn't blow away because we had 50-mile-an-hour winds. Prim has always been pretty tidy in her stall, but I want to train her a little bit more to poop near the edge. Every day I pile up her poop into the spot I would like her to try and go, and it's working pretty good so far. A few more days and I should be able to completely clean out her stall every single day.
Ivar!
In addition to Prim, I have been putting some more training on Ivar. We've been going on little walks and he's getting much better about coming when he's called.
Oh, boy. Come on.
I don't think it's gonna be very long before Ivar is more trained than Huckleberry.
You fine, buddy? Bird?
Prim's foal is not the only baby on my mind. Recently, Huckleberry discovered a bird's nest way deep down in the trunk of this apple tree. I may have to add putting a little fence around this tree to my list.
Hey, Prim. Wanna go out with your friends?
I bring Prim in every morning just to feed her separately, but I need to get her out so she can have her designated nap time with the herd.
It's a real good nest.
I'm not sure what kinds of birds these are, but this is the perfect place to have a safe nest.
Better leave him alone, buddy. Okay, leave him.
While Prim is a very beautiful horse, I wanted to make sure I picked a stallion that would cross well with her breeding. There's always a lot of factors to take into consideration when breeding a horse, but for me, I wanted to prioritize temperament and conformation. It's also important to me that the breeder you work with is reputable as well. Of course, it never hurts to make a match that will be beautiful as well.
No casualties.
I've been keeping busy with all kinds of chores, waiting for Prim to foal.
Hey, buddy. You better leave him.
Since she is so close to her safe date, I might as well share with you guys the possibilities that may come from this perfect pairing. UC Davis has a lot of information on their website about the different color coat genetics. When predicting the color of horses, two important genes are looked at most often. The expression of these two genes will determine whether your horse's base coat is bay, black, or chestnut. The red factor and agouti genes work together to produce these combinations. I've never been overly excited about color coat genetics. The horse's mind is way more important to me. Wicked Pretty has an exceptional mind and he also happens to be black, which means he is a double recessive carrier of the agouti gene. No matter what, the baby will receive one recessive expression of this gene from the sire. To make it easier for you guys to visualize, I am using this color coat calculator. Since we know that Wicked Pretty has to have 2 recessive copies of this gene, I can add that in. The red factor is completely separate, but the way these combinations combine can result in a lot of possibilities. In addition to these base coat genes, there are also dilution genes that can change the color. Due to the fact that Prim is a buckskin, we know for sure that she has one copy of the cream gene. If she had two, she would be a much different color. So we can go ahead and add a single copy of the cream gene into Prim's side. Now that Prim is in a safer point in her pregnancy and I am more prepared for the arrival of the foal, I've been getting more excited.
Boy, Huckleberry.
Since I'm more worried about Prim having a healthy, happy foal, I did not choose to look at the sex of the foal either. So that is going to be a complete surprise as well. While I was going through Prim's morning routine, I caught a glimpse of the mama bird going into her little tree nest.
Huckleberry, here. Leave those birds alone.
I haven't thought too much about whether I would prefer a colt or a filly. Typically, I would prefer a colt because they are a little bit easier to integrate into the herd, but they do present their own set of challenges.
Nigel. Gonna get sunburned, buddy.
Nigel is still convinced that he is the father to Prim's baby. I can assure you that Nigel has not bred any of the horses on this property. Prim's breeding was very controlled, and I know pretty much down to the hour when she was bred. Since getting Sparkler, I did do a little bit more research into the color coat genetics. The way the two base coat genes works can be a little bit tricky. The agouti gene is responsible for how black pigment shows up on the horse's base coat. Wicked Pretty has his black all over his body. By looking at him, you can't tell what color his base coat is. With Prim having black on her points, she will not be a double recessive carrier of this gene. This is where color testing comes in handy because just by her visual color, you can't tell what her actual genotype is. I got pestered enough about her color that I did send in a sample so I know for sure what her genetics say. I got a whole package for Prim when I tested her, but some of the genes are obviously not going to be at play. The LP gene that I tested Sparkler for that she does have, and Nigel does have it as well, is not going to be something that we need to factor in for Prim. Just by looks alone, you can tell that both Prim and Wicked Pretty do not carry this gene. When I was looking at some of Wicked Pretty's babies, I did notice that he does have some offspring that are Appaloosas. This was definitely due to the dam side and not his genetic contribution. Another gene that I am 99% sure we will not have to worry about is the gray gene. The only horse on the property that I do have that has this gene is Ziggy. It's becoming more common to test for the gray gene before breeding just to make sure you're not producing offspring that could have a higher potential for melanoma in the future. Ziggy has a few little ones. Pearl had a ton of them and it contributed to ultimately her passing. Ziggy is a flea-bitten gray, and while he does have a few little melanomas underneath his tail, they are not huge. We measure them every time he's seen by the vet. They're pretty small now, and if I wanted to remove them in the future, I definitely could. They're still doing research, but it seems like the more the horse grays out, the higher the likelihood of developing melanomas. Ziggy is 22 years old this year, and that's a pretty good run for a horse, even one that is not gray. In addition to the gray gene being a problem, there are others like the LP gene that can cause night blindness. The presence of the silver gene can also cause some problems with the eyes. Compared to more fancily colored horses, plain brown ponies tend to have less genetic problems overall. Just another reason to like them more, I suppose. I would not be upset if Prim's baby came out as a plain brown horse. To know if that is even going to be a possibility, we need to figure out the red factor. In order for a horse to come out this color, they need to have 2 copies of the recessive gene. This is where the calculations can get a little bit tricky. A lot of times you can do quite a bit of color code genetics without actually sending in a DNA sample. Before I looked at the red factor that Wicked Pretty has, and then also sending testing in for Prim, there were tons of combinations possible. I have looked at a lot of Wicked Pretty's offspring, and he has foals that are almost every single color, which means he would have to be a heterozygous carrier of the red factor gene. For Prim, I'm going to have to reference her genetic testing because you can't tell based off of her color alone. I can pretty much fill in the rest of this information for Wicked Pretty. He does not have the green gene. He does not have the dun or silver gene. The champagne gene is definitely not there. No gray gene. Just a single copy of the roan gene will make the horse roan, so he doesn't have that, or any of the typical paint colors that people test for. I did reference his stats online, and he is a heterozygous carrier of the red factor and then a homozygous recessive carrier of the agouti gene.
That is a weed. Girl, Primmy. Girl, Prim.
I have been really busy for the last 6 months or so. We moved to a new property. I've been trying to get the infrastructure built up. I knew when I bred Prim we might be somewhere in the middle of moving. I had questioned whether or not I should actually breed her, given that we were trying really hard to buy a place. But now that all of the horses are settled in and I'm slowly chipping away at everything that needs to be done around here, I am really glad to have this foal arriving soon. Prim's attitude has improved for the better, even if some days she does get a little bit sassy still. Getting her temperature taken is now no big deal. It only took her a few days and a handful of treats to come around. The other thing I'm working on is letting her allow me to get some milk from her udder. She currently really does not have anything to show, so she's probably still 2 weeks away from foaling, which is good because I'm going to need a little bit more time to train her to allow me to do that. Today, I could definitely tell that the baby was wiggling around a little bit more than usual. Pretty soon here, I think Prim is going to get more interested in spending time in her own private birthing suite. Prim is acting a lot more like the horse I know and love. While she is in charge of the little herd, she has gotten a lot less particular about being removed. She's actually been waiting by the gate for me every morning to spend her own private time in her stall. I think she's looking really good right now. As you can see, we are quite a ways away from feeding an actual foal. Even so, I still do her pregnant mama checks every day to get a baseline.
Hey, girl. Go take a nap. I'm coming, Zig. She's coming. Go on. You are too nosy.
I can tell some days Prim is a little bit cranky depending on what the baby's doing. She still does enjoy going out in the afternoon sun and taking naps with her little herd. One interesting thing that has happened is Scarlet has gotten a lot better at her leaving and coming back. Since Scarlet was never properly weaned before she was taken to the horse sale, that has been something she has always had trouble with. I've noticed that even though Scarlet is quite a bit bigger than Prim, she does follow her around and act like she's her mother. I'm really happy with this particular unintended consequence of breeding Prim. Weaning a young horse properly can impact their life significantly. Both Sparkler and Scarlet were gathered off of the range. Sparkler was gathered with her mother and her herd mates. Scarlet was most likely just roped out on the range and put in a trailer. I think that one thing is the main reason they turned out so different, even though they had so much in common. I'll be really interested to see if, quote unquote, weaning Scarlet from Prim is going to make her more brave and accepting of being by herself in the future. I've noticed that Prim hasn't been laying down as often as she has been in the past.
Hey, Zig.
I want to make sure she has a nice, comfortable bed, so today I'm moving around some straw and shavings. Of course, Ziggy is going to think that it's just for him. He is a little bit of a prince these days. I would love it if Prim laid down and took a nap in her foaling stall before I started putting her in there for an extended period of time. But right now she is still pretty sassy most days.
I'm not trying to catch you, Primmy.
She has a little bit of trouble moving around smoothly due to the size of the baby now. But if I go to catch her and she does not want to come in, she lets me know by jogging around until I leave her alone. Hopefully this will change as the baby comes near. Since I see so many horses that need help, it was really hard for me to decide to actually breed Prim. When I made the decision, I wanted to pick the perfect sire that would complement her. Both Prim and Wicked Pretty are foundation bred quarter horses. Though their foundations are the same, Prim comes from a more working ranch rodeo background, and Wicked Pretty comes from a more modern day show type horse. The resulting foal should be able to excel in many different disciplines. I'm trying not to do too much future planning for the horse that has not arrived yet. Given this cross, the foal should have really good conformation. It should be pretty good-minded, and although I don't like to admit it, whatever color the baby comes out, it should be pretty spectacular. After looking at Prim's information, I can put in some of the particulars for the red factor and the agouti gene. She will be passing on a dominant copy of the agouti gene. You can see here that, like we thought, she just has one copy of the cream gene, no copy of the gray gene or the LP gene. It looks like Prim has the same expression of the red factor gene. She is heterozygous black, which means there is the possibility that the foal could get 2 recessive copies of this gene. She also does not carry any kind of dun factor, no silver gene, no champagne gene, no gray gene. The only thing I did not get her tested for is the presence of the roan gene. It was a separate test with the company I used, and I just didn't notice it until I got the results back. I never really thought about it too much before. I always just figured Prim was a plain old buckskin, but looking closer at her, she is definitely a roan. She does change colors season to season, and over the years she has changed colors a little bit. The sire side of her pedigree is well known for producing a lot of roans. There is no doubt in my mind that Prim carries at least one copy of the roan gene. She could carry 2, but it would be more likely that her color would have changed much more by now.
Whoa. Careful, buddy.
Since we now have some definitive answers on most of the color genes for both Wicked Pretty and Prim, after one last check to make sure everything is right, we can finally find out the possible color combinations for the foal. I've noticed a lot of Wicked Pretty's babies kind of mimic the same color as their dam. I kind of think Prim's baby is going to come out looking just like her. It has the same percentage of coming out plain buckskin with no roan. This is a picture of the famous Harlan who is in Prim's pedigree. In addition to being buckskin or buckskin roan, another color that is most likely to pop up is plain old bay. Since Prim does carry at least one copy of the roan gene, it could also come out bay roan. If the foal comes out with a base coat of red, since Prim does have that cream gene, it could be a palomino roan or a palomino. Prim is such a beautiful horse, and the Wicked Pretty is not too bad to look at either. But I would be a little bit remiss if I didn't express how happy I am that there is the possibility that the foal could come out as a red or chestnut roan, or if we're lucky, a plain brown chestnut. It will of course be a fun surprise to see what color the foal comes out as and the sex. But I'm going to continue to hope for very few sleepless nights and a seamless delivery for Prim. A happy, healthy foal and mama is what I'm after. If you guys have any guesses as to what color the baby's going to come out, make sure to leave them in the comment section. There have been a few points along the way where I have started to regret breeding Prim, but now that we are on the tail end of this journey, I am over the moon to be expecting a new foal soon. I'm planning on catching the birth on camera, so if you're not subscribed, make sure to do that so you don't miss it. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.